So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading and for my YouTube channel. And I'm super excited that my guest today is he's just an amazing guy, the fantastic Alex Brooker. How are you, Alex?
Oh, what a lovely intro. And better for hearing that, mate. Thank you very much. It feels very undeserved. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And I mean, let's kick off. I wanted to kind of start off by asking about Soccer Aid. Obviously, you've done that recently.
Yeah.
How was that? You've been doing it now. You've done it the last 4 years. How was that?
I think it's the best thing I've ever done. Certainly in my career. It's not even really, I don't see it as part of like a job or anything like that. I think it's just obviously outside of my family life. It's the best thing I've ever done, full stop. As a football fan, it's a dream. And it's just an incredible event. You're surrounded by just all these incredible people for 5 days, and I love all of it. I love turning up to training for the first day on the Thursday and right through to the game on the Sunday. It's amazing, and obviously we're doing it for an incredible cause in UNICEF, and UNICEF are a charity that I'm lucky to have been involved with since I first did Soccer Aid, and this year I've just been announced as an ambassador in the UK. So it's a really it was a real honour to be asked to do it. And yeah, obviously as part of that, I did Soccer Aid again. The game itself is knackering. I do like 10 minutes and I'm absolutely blowing, mate. I mean, it's ignoring having one leg. I'm 41 and not very fit, and that's as tough as any disability when you're playing football against some of the best people that have ever done it. But I just love it, mate. Honestly, it is just the best.
And I mean, how did you first get involved with it? How did that kind of come your way?
So Soccer Aid is something that it's one of the now I'd say it was kind of it was almost like on if you'd have said to me in 2012 when I very first did my first day on Channel 4 at the Paralympics, you've got a bucket list of shows that you watch that you'd love to be on. Soccer Aid was the last one of those shows. So I remember, it was Celebrity Juice and League of Their Own. They were a big 8 out of 10 Cats, and so they were kind of the big shows that I kind of wanted to be on. And obviously Soccer Aid was the other one. So yeah, it was just I got asked. I always wanted to do it. I'd always hoped that maybe one day I might get a chance. And then yeah, we were just. I think 2022. I think it was. Yeah, it was my first one. The ask came in, and there was never a second set. I think it's one of the only things where my agent has sent through the email, which is the ask has come in, and she just went, "I know what you're saying to this. I've already blocked it out in the diary." It's yeah, and I was ecstatic. It was. And I'm so lucky to have done 4 of them now. It surprises me every time, it's to get asked back, because it's such a desirable thing. Everybody wants to be part of Soccer Aid, and it's because I just think it in terms of an event, a live event, in terms of what it does for charity, in terms of live fundraisers and the money it raises every year. I just think it's heads and shoulders. It's the best. And so yeah, I was just really lucky, mate. And it's one of those things now where it's like, I ain't getting rid of me now. Whether or not I'm playing again, who knows? But I will always want to be involved in some capacity. And what I've loved most about my kind of soccer journey is that I've been made to feel very loved, very welcome by everybody. And from the ex-pros, the celebrities, the people at UNICEF, people at Soccer Aid Productions. It's like a family, and feel very much part of that. And you see the same faces, and every June when we go back, and yeah, I will always want to be involved in some way. Whether or not I play again, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I've got some thoughts on it, whether or not I'd be able to, because my legs are not getting any better. So it's one of those things. But I'll always be involved, I hope.
I mean, obviously, you mentioned it, the training. I mean, where do you even start with training for Soccer Aid?
Well, I mean, this in previous years, it's weird enough. It's actually the prosthetic leg is not the problem. It's the left foot that I have is always the problem for me. So I've got something called talipes in my left foot where it kind of bends around, and that in itself has caused me a number of issues over the course of my life. So much so that when I did my disability documentary for BBC in 2020, Disability in Me, I actually think I saw a surgeon for the first time in kind of 15, 16 years to talk about my ankle and my left foot. And I actually said, look, are you just going to need to get rid of this? And he was like, no, that's not. He was like, that's outrageous. He was like, we're not going to just get rid of your foot. And I was like, oh, okay then. But I've had to manage it. I have to really manage it very carefully. And actually, this year's the best I'd felt. And so I started training in like January. Lost a bit of the timber. I was in the gym. I was cycling. I was doing a lot of work, and I had a steroid injection in my left foot, which is kind of like it basically kind of any pain. It helps alleviate that. And I felt absolutely blinding. And then I played in a charity match in May, which was for Alex Horn from Taskmaster. He does a charity, Alex Horn's football trophy every year at Cheshire United. And I played in that in May. And then I just went and done my knee. And I was just like, I'll give up. But do you know what? The training, so that kind of really disrupted me this year. I was flying. I was absolutely flying for a while. I didn't drink the first 3 months of the year. Didn't just do dry January. Didn't have a single drop of drink during the whole of the early series of Last Leg this year. And yeah, it was just one of those things. But do you know what? It's the physios and the doctors at Soccer Aid, they're brilliant, and they looked after me. And if anything, my problem is I go mad. I fly, I run up and down. I try and do everything. I try and do more than what my body allows me to. And that's always my slight problem. So when it even got to the game this year, even though I felt amazing on the Thursday training session, by Sunday I'd done too much, and I ignored the doctors, and I went out onto the pitch at Old Trafford, and I was struggling right from the get-go. But I would never not want to do it. And it was one of those things where I think I said a couple of years ago, I don't think my legs will let me do another one. And then actually, I came away from Soccer Aid this year, and I was like, I think if I get a clean run at the training, I've maybe got another 15-minute stint in me. It's a big thing for me. It's one of those things where it's I'd say football is the one thing probably over the course of my life where it's the thing I've wanted to do more of, but my disabilities, it's restricted me doing as much. I've been that way since I first loved football when I was 10, and when I was a teenager, I wanted to play more. I had operations and stuff like that just so I could play more. And even now I'm 41. I still want to do more. And I think it's one of those things where it's very emotive for me. So I always want to try my hardest. And, it is hard because, I would love to be, it's actually quite, what's the word? It makes me feel, it's probably the most self-conscious I'll feel all year because I want to do more. Nobody expects more of me. Everyone's lovely to me. Everyone just gives me so much respect, so much love when I go to Soccer Aid. But I just always want to do more. It's just that's the voice in me, and it's just one of those things. So yeah, the training. If I get to do it, I've already got back. I've got back into training already. So hopefully, if I have a decent run at it, maybe I'll be able to play again.
And I mean, the amazing thing as well is that doing that, you get to give back, and it's for charity. I mean, that must be quite a rewarding thing that you can use your kind of status to give back and help others.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest privilege is to be asked to be involved to try and help them raise as much money as possible, which is the goal every year. The goal isn't about me playing 10 minutes, any single one player there. The goal is purely to raise as much money for UNICEF to help as many children across the world as we can. And a couple of years ago, I did one of the trips with Soccer Aid with UNICEF, and I went to the Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan, and I saw where, the UNICEF funded projects and where the money goes and the difference it made to the young people in the camp that I met, young disabled people, and their stories very much resonated with me. Even, I think about them all the time, and thankfully through UNICEF I've been able to, we've exchanged videos a couple of times, and just to see how the children I met are. And so, I mean, that's the biggest honour that you could have, is that they, you're deemed to be someone that they think could help them help these children. And that's just, obviously, like I said, when I did my trip, I met young disabled people in Zaatari, and their stories definitely resonated with me, because while I will never understand the horrors that they've had to escape, the things that their families have gone through, the lives that they lead, the one thing I did understand, I met a young girl called Elan, who she was getting a prosthetic. She had a 3D hand printed in the camp, and that was through a printer that was 3D printer that was actually partly funded through a UNICEF partnership. And so I saw the difference it made in the confidence in her, and it was just, it was something that will stay with me. I know that they played the appeal video when I did Deal or No Deal for Soccer Aid this year, and they played the video now. And even when I think about them, and when I think about Alan and the other lad Hamza that I met, it's very emotional for me. But at the same time, it's the emotions, in a good way, because it was just, like I said, it was just an absolute honour to go out there. So I could talk about Soccer Aid forever, because I just think it's the absolute best.
Now, we will, of course, talk a bit about the last leg, but I wanted to go back to where your sort of broadcast presenting career, your sort of journalism career started. I mean, how did you know that was where you wanted to take yourself?
With journalism, I was always very clear. So a lot of kids, they don't know what they want to be when they grow up. I was 10 or 11 when I wrote my first match report. I remember, because it was Arsenal had been beaten in the Cup Winners' Cup final by Zaragoza, and some guy called Naeem had scored with the last kick of the game from the halfway line. And I wrote my first match report on it the next day at school. And I was like that. I always wanted to be a football journalist. I wanted to be a football writer. I used to get like the Match magazine shoot and stuff like that. And I used to think, I'd love to be the person who writes in these. So I was very clear on that being what I wanted to do. So I did, English language and literature at A-level. I went to Liverpool John Moores University. That was a purposeful thing, a big football city. And so that was somewhere I wanted to go. Moved, a long way from home. A lot of my mates and family thought I wouldn't last more than a term there, and I've still not really ever I've never lived back in Kent since the day I went there in September 2003. So it's been that kind of, everyone was wrong on that front, but it was just, I was very clear on being the football journalist. That was all I wanted to do, and then I left university. I very nearly got a job on the summer scheme at Sky Sports News, and actually the guy who I got down to the last two, and the guy who got that job is still working for them now. He's one of their top reporters. So I missed out to somebody obviously who's exceptional. But in terms of television, I never, I didn't do very well in the television module of my degree. I didn't do very well in the radio module of my degree. So I didn't think a career in I would never thought about a career in broadcasting as such, even, especially after I didn't get the Sky Sports News summer trainee scheme. I never thought about it. I went to a company called the Press Association, a national news agency, and I was a sports journalist there. And I was there for a number of years, really. And my career was kind of stagnating a little bit. I'd gone for promotions, not got them. And I'd kind of been a journalist. When I saw the Channel 4 advert, I'd been a journalist for like 4 years at that point. And I'd kind of, weirdly enough, the thing about football journalism is it's a desirable job, but because so many people want to do it, actually, like, the pay isn't great, and you work when football's on. So you forget this thing that you love. You end up working during it. Every Christmas, Boxing Day, you had games like New Year's Day. So it was like, I was like, oh gosh, didn't sign up for this. And eventually I just saw the Channel 4 ads. I remember seeing the ad. I was just looking for on a journalism website, and I saw the ad in, it was maybe, I think it might have been September 2010 when I saw the ad. And it was kind of, I remember it sounded, it was kind of like, are you disabled? And I was like, yeah. Do you have a background in the media or in journalism? And I was like, yeah, I've got that. And then it said, do you have a background in Paralympic sport? And at that time, earlier that year, I'd covered a Paralympic Talent Open Day for the Press Association. I actually tried the sports, and it turned out I was really good at rifle shooting. So from that, I'd actually been on this development squad for Great Britain rifle shooting. And I was kind of like, so I've got that as well. I was like, there can't be that many of us. And it said, upload a video of what you do with 3 minutes of Channel 4 airtime. And I remember kind of looking at it, and I remember thinking, well, you don't really get a lot of disabled people on telly. There must be a reason for that. And I wasn't quite sure on what was going on with it. And with the Paralympics itself, there'd only ever been really like highlights on the BBC. And I'd never really kind of watched it loads. And then I was like, it's kind of almost seen as, it was very much seen as, after the Olympics, and we all got to go. And it was kind of, I don't know, it was really sad, because I kind of thought is this even going to work? Because you don't really get disabled people on telly. And I'd grown up thinking, well, there must be a reason for that. I was 26 when I auditioned at Channel 4. And so it was what you do, 3 minutes of Channel 4 airtime. And I'd had an idea of what I'd like to do with the video and what I'd pitch. And my YouTube audition is still online now. It's mad that I got through with it. But I wrote this little script, and I remember I left it to the last day. It was the very last day that you could submit your online application. You had to put your YouTube link with it. It's the last day of it. And I remember getting up, and I rang my mate who had a small production company in Leeds, and I said he was going to film it for me. And I said to him, look, I'm going to come over and do that video today, if that's all right. And he was like, do you know what, mate? I'm snowed under. I don't think I've got time. He was like, you might have to film it on your phone. And I went, don't worry about it. It's not the sort of thing I'll get anyway. Nothing will come of it. And I'd seen some of the other YouTube videos already, because you could see everyone else's, and they were really good. And I was like, I ain't going to get through anyway with this. So I remember going into Leeds, getting my hair cut. And I'll never forget, I went shopping, and he rang me, and he was like, look, I've seen your script. It's quite funny. He's like, come and do it. I'll record it for you. I've got half hour. And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, come and record it. And we did. And you talk about sliding doors moments. For me, that's the biggest sliding doors moment, because if he'd never have called me back, I never would have sent in that audition. That's how blasé I was about it. And luckily for me, I got taken through, and I did I went to a camp at the National Film and Television School, and we did some more screen tests, and we got taken on as kind of trainees on 3-month placements. I went to ITV Sport. And then I went to London 2012, and I was meant to be a reporter. That was what I was bringing to the table. I was never earmarked to be in front of camera loads. I was there earmarked to be a reporter. And my job going into London 2012 was to be the football reporter. So I was going to do the blind football, the 5-a-side blind football, the 7-a-side cerebral palsy football. And that was my job. And I ended up doing research packs for all the presenters, because I was a journalist, so I was doing big research packs, and I wanted to know everything about every athlete, even the people I weren't covering. And I went to London 2012 the first night. I was a VIP reporter at the opening ceremony. First time on live telly was interviewing David Cameron, who was the then Prime Minister. And then straight after, I interviewed Boris Johnson, who was Mayor of London. And then the next morning, I went about my merry way, getting ready to do the football in a couple of days' time. And obviously the last leg was not what it went to become. I knew it was going to be a highlight show. Again, sliding doors moments. The guy who was the executive producer of it was a guy I'd met when I was on my placement at ITV. Lovely guy called Pete Thomas. And he was very much pushed for me to be on the highlight show. He wanted me to be their reporter. I remember meeting Adam Hills. I never met Josh until the first day of London 2012. And obviously, it's like, cut a long story short, the rest is history. 350 something episodes later, and a whole new career. And it was actually kind of baffling because last week I covered the FA Disability Cup for TNT Sports, and I did a live interview on a pitch side after the game. And I thought to myself, as I was about to do it, this is the first one of these I've done in 14 years. 13 years. And I was like, this was what I was meant to do. It was never meant to be comedy or anything like that. And that just shows you, it's a crazy story. It's just, I'm very fortunate that, people say, what's the secret to, being successful in telly and lasting however many years, 13 years. I'm like, well, it's obviously ideal when the first thing that you do lasts for 13 years. It's an absolute result when it goes on to become kind of massive. And I look back now at those early days of Last Leg, and all I remember thinking about the Channel 4 coverage when I saw the Meet the Superhumans ad in the summer of 2012, I was like, this is going to be something. I had no idea what to expect. And I was like, they're going to do it's really going to be different, and it's really going to be exciting. And it was really exciting to be a part of it and to be part of Last Leg. And then obviously it's gone on to become an entertainment show. So, and we've done 4 Paralympics.
If someone were to have told you back in 2012 that you'd still be doing the Last Leg in 2025, what would you have said to them?
I'd have said absolutely no. I'd have gone no, because we never imagined. I think maybe if you'd have said to me at the end of the first series, do you think you'll come back and do Rio? I'd have gone, yeah, I think we will, because it had gone down well. The show had landed. This chemistry between the three of us had emerged, which none of us expected. It wasn't contrived. None of us knew, I didn't know Josh. I knew Adam from meeting him previously only a little bit, and I would never have expected that. And I remember us doing a New Year's special in 2012, an end of year special. And that was kind of about not just the Paralympics, but the news of the year. We were like, actually, maybe we can just talk about other stuff. Maybe we can. And I remember us going for lunch, me, Adam and Josh, we sat there with a coffee, and we were like, maybe we can. Like, should we just, it was kind of like, fuck it, let's give it a go. Sorry. It was just like, let's give it a go. So yeah, it was just, and that, I remember those early series in 2013. And like I said, I've so many times over the course of my career, I've wondered, is Last Leg, how long is it going to last for? And a couple of years ago, I stopped wondering, because I just don't, it's not where it keeps going. And last series, we had a great time doing it. And when, this is the longest break we will have had. We're back in the end of the year, towards the end of the year, and we'd have been away for a long time. We made a lot of shows, second half of last year, start of this year. And it just keeps going. And ultimately, I think the big thing for us, and I think the big thing, within the world of television, and it's something that shouldn't get lost, I don't think, and I sometimes feel like it has a little bit, is that there's still not loads of other shows with, like, certainly entertainment shows with disabled people hosting them. There's still, and it's unique in the world. You don't get shows across the world. There's not like a Last Leg kind of equivalent in other countries. You don't get disabled people at the forefront of primetime shows in a lot of countries, and I think that's a big thing. And I sometimes feel like it's almost been forgotten, because weird enough now with Last Leg, it's sometimes because we've been doing it so long, it's almost kind of, it feels like it's got forgotten along the way now because everyone's so used to us. It's a really weird thing because we still talk about it, but a lot of people forget that Adam's got one leg. A lot of people don't even know that I've got, like, it's one leg all the time. It's like they see my hands and they don't, like, people who are new to it don't always know. And it's one of those things that even though we still talk about disability issues and things like that, it's kind of almost got like kind of, yeah, almost lost along the way sometimes now that we're still doing something that has never been really done before, and it hasn't been done since everywhere else. So it still holds a very big place in my heart, last leg. And I always say, I mean, we did the 10-year, it was the 10-year show. And I remember saying to the boys, the biggest thing is it changed it's obviously changed my life immeasurably. It's changed my career. It's changed the life that I was living and you know, all of these things. And it's more that for me, the big thing it changed is how I feel about myself and how I feel about my disability. And actually, it was the first time when I did London 2012 that I'd ever even really talked about it. And it's so weird. It just so happened to be on telly. And it was almost like, it's been like the oddest form of therapy for the last 13 years. But it's been wonderful, mate.
I mean, I'll say the other thing that it gives you is that notoriety, and that must be something you kind of have to get your head used to and get, you know, around the fact that people know you and they want to talk to you. And was that a strange thing to get used to?
Yeah, I mean, it really was, and it was, and it's a strange thing being in the public eye. My mates still now, after all these years, they still kind of struggle with it. I went to go and see Justin Timberlake on Saturday night, and lots of people were coming up to me, and most people are lovely. You get the odd one, there always is, and there always will be. And it took me a long time to get used to that. There will always be someone who is used to being the person in their group who gets the attention, and they see their group give it to someone else and they won't like it. There's always something that go, well, I don't know who you are. It's like, well, I don't know who you are, do I? But you lot have come up to me, and it's kind of one of those things where if you reacted negatively to, if you gave them the reaction that they're giving you, you're just getting an argument every time you're out. My mates don't like it sometimes. They think sometimes it's a struggle. But for me, the overall thing is, I'm very fortunate to be doing the job that I'm doing, and I'm really lucky that, you know, I'd say 98% of people are lovely, and they always have been to me, and they've always responded to the stuff that I've done and putting myself out there, you know, whether it be Soccer Aid or Last Leg or Masked Singer or, you know, any number of kind of stuff that I've been fortunate enough to do. And ultimately, being in the public eye has enabled me to live the dream, live my dreams, to do Soccer Aid. And I did a show, my mate said to me a couple of years ago, last year, he said that, like, of all of us, like, it's almost like there's a bucket list of living your dreams that I've managed to do. You know, last year for Last Leg, I got to interview, you know, all the Ghostbusters. And I was dressed as a Ghostbuster. And to a lot of people, they go, that's weird at your age. But to me, that's my childhood dream. You know, I was with Ernie Hudson, who played Winston, dressed as a Ghostbuster. It was awesome. You know, and it was like the things like that. I did a show for Sky called The Unofficial Science of Home Alone. Home Alone's my favourite film. I got to go out to Chicago and go to the Home Alone house, and it was part of the work. I got an iron signed by Daniel Stern, who plays Marv. Like, it was these, like, things like that. It's just the whole being on Last Leg and being in the public eye has enabled me to do that. And I'm very, very fortunate. And like I said, people are lovely. And look, the other big thing is, for me, I've been able to represent disabled people, whereas a lot of people, like when I was young, I didn't really see anybody like me on telly. So that's a really big thing for young disabled people. And like I said, I did the Disability Cup with TNT last week, and I kept saying to them, there was nothing like this when I was younger. I didn't know football was for you as a disabled person. There was a form of football for you, and now it's on television and it's live all for 2 days on the big sports channel like TNT. And you're like, things have changed so much, but it means the world to to young disabled people, I think, to see themselves represented. And there's still not as many of us on screen as what there should be. But for those of us that are, I know that everyone, people like Rosie Jones, Chris McCausland, Chris won Strictly. It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And it's like, you're showing, you get to a platform to kind of, represent, you represent disabled people. And that's a very big privilege. And there's no part of me which goes, oh yeah, but you do get the odd idiot come up to you on a night out. It's neither here nor there to me, all of that.
Now, I mean, there's so much more we could keep talking about, but I know we're sort of limited to time. But just before we go, we've got to talk about our amazing NHS. First of all, what would you like to say to the amazing staff who work tirelessly throughout the NHS? And then also, what would you like to say to anyone who is currently stuck in hospital, maybe not having the best time? What would you like to say?
Well, obviously, I think to the amazing people that work in the NHS, I'd just say a massive thank you. And I'm sure they're aware of, maybe sometimes I think people are humble and they're not quite aware of the difference that they make. But I remember all the nurses, remember all the doctors, and they're years and years, 20, 30 years ago, I remember them all. And that tells you the impact they have, because ultimately, when you're going through a tough time, and there's no doubt about it, ideally, none of us would ever end up in hospital or under medical care. But a lot of us do. And it can be tough, it can be lonely, it can be isolating, it can be scary. But at the same time, the people that are around you, I remember, in Great Ormond Street, the nurse, I remember a nurse called Mark, and he used to come, when he used to do his night shift, I used to look forward to it, because he'd come and sit with me and talk about football until it was lights off. And then when I was talking about football, I wouldn't be thinking, oh gosh, I've got to have this operation tomorrow. I'd be thinking about that, and then I'd go to bed like happy. And so I look back at my time, in Great Ormond Street, where I spent a lot of time in hospital, and I don't look back at it as traumatizing. I don't look back at it with sadness. I look back at it with fondness, and that's because of the people that work there. Every single person, not just doctors, nurses, everyone who's in the ward and around the places, and they make such a world of difference. So to all of those people, I'd say thank you, like from the bottom of my heart, because you've made the difference to me. You've given me the confidence and the care to enable me to live an incredible life that I wouldn't change for anything. And to the anyone who's in hospital at the moment, especially younger people as well, anybody, but just know that it can get better, and the way that you're feeling now can change. And like, if you'd have said that to me when I was laying in Great Ormond Street when I was 16, I'd had another operation on my knee, and I was just sad that I wasn't able to be like my mates. And if you'd have said to me then, but things can change and you can feel differently and you will feel better, I'd have probably said to you, well, that's rubbish. But it is true, and I know how hard it can be sometimes, and I know that it's difficult being away from your friends, your family, and the uncertainty and all of that goes with it. I've been there and I've lived it. And like I said, my big thing is just know that it can get better, and it will do. And the way you're feeling will be temporary, and then things can, you can go on and do the things that you wanted. That's a big message, and yeah, that's what I'd say, mate.
I was going to say, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up your time to talk to me. Of course, keep safe, and you are welcome back anytime.
Oh, no problem. Thanks a lot, mate. Sorry I spoke loads. You got me going.